I've been learning these principles and watching you and other teachers for a while now, and I've applied what I've learned, and I've watched amazing things manifest in my life.
The law is applying itself to you.
Yes.
And to be consciously aware of it when that happens is what true knowledge is, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. It's been fascinating to be a part of that experience. And
well, it's not fun if it happens accidentally.
Right.
The funnest thing is to find a thought and acknowledge the value of it, and then focus on it deliberately until you watch the momentum of it increase, and then watch the outcome of that deliberately applied focus.
Yes.
Yes.
And the fascinating part is that I've manifested things that I've wanted and then found myself totally dissatisfied. And
well, that's because you've chewed all the flavor out of the gum.
Mm-hmm.
It was the process. You didn't create that so that you just focus on it forevermore. You were getting ready to be 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 ready. It's just a bouncing off place for something else. But it was good when it was good.
Right.
Why are you bashing it because you haven't thought of anything else?
Right.
Because if you're in alignment with something and it becomes, your complaint cannot be more than this: it isn't all that I want. Well, nothing is ever going to be all that you want. Because you're not ever going to stand in a place that is void of contrast. So you're not ever going to stand in a place that is void of expansion. And since you're never going to be in a place where there is not more expansion, then you're never going to be in a place where you're done. What people think satisfaction is now I don't have to think about that anymore. No. Satisfaction is now I get to think about this in the way my inner being is thinking about that. Satisfaction is not ever being done. Being done is not satisfying, and it's fortunate that you cannot be done, or you can't get it done, or get it wrong.
So I found myself, when I was dissatisfied, I was able to tap into
So give us an example. Dissatisfied meaning. So let's talk about the true definition of dissatisfaction. I'm choosing to look at this differently than my inner being is. I'm choosing to find some sort of lack in it. Because?
Well, I feel this urge for more meaning, more purpose.
But that urge is coming forth from within. So this is a really good conversation. So when does the inspired urge from the source within you, when could it be not satisfying? Knowing what you know about the laws, and you know all you need to know just from the discussion today, under what possible circumstance could you feel dissatisfaction? It's always the same answer. You're looking at it differently than source is. Do you want to give us an example?
Well, mainly to do with my career. I've manifested amazing opportunities.
So when you use the word career, when almost everyone uses the word career, you make it sound like it's this box. What's that? That's my career. What's it made out of? Tears and sweat. It's a fluid thing that never ends. We want you to consider your career being you're the creator of your own experience, and your career is letting things occur to you that you want and then lining up with them and watching them manifest. You are an architect.
Well, that's what I am.
But you're an even more important architect than you're an architect, and you are a receiver of goods, and you are a putting together of the pieces, and you are a manager that gathers everything that is necessary to move things forward. What kind of things do you architect? Buildings?
Residential.
Yeah. So did you do more than one?
Yes.
If you only got to do one, would that have been dissatisfying? All that training, all that knowledge, all that pencil?
That's the thing, is I put so much effort into the schooling, the training, and the experience. I've worked for one of the best architects in the world, and I never found myself like I was aligned with my purpose. And so I'm at a crossroads now. I've put all this energy and effort into this big career that doesn't bring me joy.
there's no hope for you. So let's talk about the vantage point that you're standing in. So first, it doesn't help to feel like you've sacrificed in order to accomplish something. Right. Because learning that was fun. You remember when you first got the idea? You remember how it felt? And
there are aspects that I love about it.
So what is the most exhilarating thing about envisioning something and having knowledge about what tools and materials that it would actually take for those thoughts to turn to things? Wow.
Yeah.
You get to take ideas and concepts and draw lines into spaces. And you get to envision it. And then others get to follow through and actually turn your vision into a tangible, knock on wood, reality. And that's not satisfying?
It's more satisfying when I'm doing it for myself.
So this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, about purpose of self. Step back just a little bit from any creation that you might be personally involved in right now. We just want to ask you a few questions. Is it of interest to you that your Earth spins in its orbit?
Is it interesting to me that the Earth spins in orbit?
Is it interesting or satisfying? Because it's not just for you.
Right.
It's necessary for you.
Yes.
And if it weren't doing that, you'd have a problem.
That's right.
But it's not a specific thing that is necessarily ringing your bells every single day.
No.
And yet there is something about it that you could appreciate.
Yes.
And if you focused on it, even with a more fine point, you could actually bring yourself to true appreciation that might even evoke tears and enthusiasm. You can get pretty excited about your Earth and the way it spins in proximity to other planets and the longevity of it and the balance of it and really the perfection of it and the never-ending unfolding creation of it and all that it does to keep itself current and vital and alive and current and vital and alive and current, relevant, all the stuff that your planet continues to do to stay relevant, even though it's pretty much the same old orbit year after year, so much so that people write it down and tell you what's going to happen. And when you wake up and get partway through the day on Monday, there's going to be a blocking out of the sun, which is so expected, it's so predictable, but even in its predictability, it's still pretty freaking amazing, isn't it? In other words,
yes. And I've been in that state for long periods of time, and then kind of had situations occur that knocked me off kilter, and I've had a difficult time getting back into that
but do you hear what we're saying to you? It's your job to keep your work relevant to you. It's your job to keep it active and alive. It's your job to breathe more life into it, because your job's a little bit like the chair that we were describing earlier. Oh, it's done. This is my career. What's your career? It's this. And we say, oh, it's alive and it's breathing and it's more. And you're attracting more people that are wanting more things. And the expansion of what you are building is becoming more and more and more. Architecture is changing in every moment, the way that it comes together. There are ideas coming from your inner being that some architects have not yet drawn. There are easier ways of doing things that most architects don't even know about. There's discovery within this architecture that you've not allowed yourself to discover because you're choosing to be bored rather than alive with it, you see. There's so much more. Now, you could, and maybe should, there's no should, but you could, and maybe want to, you could say, this is no longer fueling me, and maybe I'll go do something else. But the thing about this is, there's so much momentum about all of that, and you won't let yourself just turn your back on that and do something else, because you have this belief that you've invested so much that you would be wasting something. And we say, you can't waste anything. But what you could do, you could in any moment in time pinch yourself off from your true, real resources And looking at something in a way and calling it boring or not interesting, especially if it's something that you are in a position that you're contributing quite a bit of your time to in every day, it's not a waste, but it is a squandering of potential, which translates as a not satisfying experience. Do you believe that your inner being went to architectural school with you? Do you believe that your inner being and those that hang around with your inner being understand things about that you are still in the process of discovery? Do you believe that there are things to be built of a physical nature on this planet that are in the vortex that haven't been built yet? Do you believe that you could get in sync with your inner being and that you could, in a state of allowing and receiving, that you could receive an idea that would thrill you when you receive it? And if you didn't kill the idea with doubt and, oh, that's never been done or that can't be done, but if you chose to not be bored today, instead ride the rocket of that desire or ride the rocket of that newfound thought, can you feel how it could gather momentum? And those non-physical and physical alike who have information about how that could be accomplished could then rendezvous with you on the beach in that vortexual sandstorm that we're talking about?
I'm open to it.
That's the point. Are you open to it? That's the point. And in a conversation of boredom and dissatisfaction, in those moments you're not open to it. In those moments you're arguing for a limitation that won't let you receive, you see. You have to be expectant that there's something good for you there. And you see, here's the thing. This is what we know for sure about you. You are an energy, a consciousness that must expand. And when you feel limited by the box that you've put yourself in, then it isn't fun. You got to figure out how to get the lid off that box. You got to draw some things that thrill you, and you got to go to the job site and you got to watch it go up, and you got to feel the thrill of the people who are involved in it, and you got to feel the thrill of everything that gets set in motion because of your dream. Or you've got to be in the receptive mode where you can hear the dream that somebody else. Who's deciding? The reason that you're saying it's only exciting for me if I'm building it for myself is because of more of your ideas are coming into it. But what about dovetailing what you know with what someone else wants and giving them the most that they could possibly expect because you're so good at that? What about being so good at conveying what's in your mind and what you see? Esther looks at a blueprint and she doesn't really understand it. Jerry used to drag hoses all over the property just so that she could get an idea of how big it was. She'd say, I don't really get what I'm looking at here. Am I supposed to hold it up here or look it down here? Where Jerry could look at the blueprint and he could see it in its full manifestation. He used to make mock buildings for her out of little pieces of paper and put them together in Scotch tape. She still has the treehouse that he constructed out of paper so that she could get a sense of what it was going to look like, because the blueprint didn't come alive for Esther, but it comes alive for you. You're able to translate it into a way that makes it real. You see what we're getting at? Co-creation. You like co-creation?
Love it.
We just want you to feel everyone, and the reason that we're talking so long with you about something that is really pretty obvious when you think about it is because all of you are the architects of your experience. And so many people are sort of stuck and bored because you think it's all got to come out of your mind, when you have bit by bit put all of the building blocks into the vortex and your inner being has constructed stuff unlike anything that you've lived, anything that you've seen, or anything that anybody has lived. And you want to get in the receiving mode of that architect who will bring to life for you, bit by bit by bit, what you've put there. You're ready to see more than you're letting yourself see. Sometimes people say, well, I'm pretty bored with this or unhappy with this, and do you think I should stop doing this? And sometimes we say yes, but we always say, don't leave out of dissatisfaction. Stay until you're satisfied and then leave if you want to. Because if you leave out of dissatisfaction, then the next thing you attract doesn't have any juice. You just can't get there from there. You gotta cash in the chips of all that energy that you flowed. You see, we can see your vortex and we can see how you feel about it, and we feel different about it than you do. So we're using all these words to get your juices flowing, but we're not getting your juices flowing because words don't teach.